If you were expecting Overwatch to be a huge premier esport when it dropped about a year ago, you might be asking yourself, what the heck went wrong? Or what's going on right now in the scene currently to prohibit the game from growing to that extent? Well, personally, I think it is very clear and very obvious and can be boiled down to one factor: the lack of scoreboard. Now, the reason that I think this is so important is because it applies not only to the pro level, but the lower level. You know, the Bronze League competitive player, the Diamond League competitive player, the mid-level competitive player, and even the absolute most casual guy who doesn't even play in competitive but plays in quick play. The game doesn't have a scoreboard. So in video games and in sports, I'm going to grab my dog here. In video games and in sports, as you see my
What's
dog
up,
here,
guys?
doing a live comm, so I'm going to have to mute my
Hello.
team. You play and you do the game or the activity to be the best and to win and to excel and to get better. Now, whenever you can't see how you're doing compared to everyone else in on your team and on the other team, it pretty much boils the games down to wins and losses. And I'm all for prioritizing winning and losing as a really important thing, but the problem is you go even further than that. It's not that winning and losing is the most important thing. Blizzard has intentionally gutted and taken out any sort of enjoyment that you could have derived from carrying the game. And essentially they've done this to appeal to the lowest common denominator, the absolute worst player who does terribly and gets flamed for it and contributes nothing to the team. Now, it makes absolutely no sense to try to take away that extremely fun and exhilarating aspect of playing a shooter team game, which is carrying like a badass and doing the best in the entire lobby. I mean, I've played a ton of Call of Duty, I've played my fair share of CS, Doom, played a lot of different shooting games, quite a bit of Battlefield, and that feeling of hitting tab and seeing that you are the badass, you're the reason your team is winning, or at least one of the most highly contributing factors at your role in this case, is a really good feeling. Now, the reason that Blizzard took away, or I guess never instituted the scoreboard to begin with, was they essentially came out and said, well, if someone's healing, we don't want some jerk to look at the scoreboard and say, what's going on, man? You're Mercy and have 0 kills. What the hell's going on? You're the reason we're losing. Now, if you've spent any time in multiplayer games, it's so unfathomably stupid, it's tripping me up verbally. If you've spent any time in multiplayer games, you know just how laughable this is. If someone is playing healer in competitive Overwatch and there was a scoreboard and it showed Mercy, and like after 2 whole rounds, 0-1 with 11k healing done, which is like the score of many of my competitive games. I'll die 1 time or 2 times throughout the whole match. And let's just say the tank player would be like, oh, Mercy, what the hell, 0 kills? Everyone on the team would either shout that person down as a moron, rightly so, or know that they're a moron. And pretty much anyone who touches this game knows, like, oh, well, the healers aren't supposed to be top fragging. That's the job of the DPS. And instead what you've done is you've taken away any sort of accountability from bad players by removing the scoreboard. You enable players who are very bad at the game and blindly pick DPS every single time, regardless of what the team actually needs, to continue to pick DPS. Because I might die here, you've completely nullified the scoreboard and the ability for their teammates to read the game and hold them accountable for their actions. Right now, I know we're winning by 64%, but if I hit tab, I don't know who's carrying. Okay, I'll hit tab. I'm golden healing. Now, we have one other healer. I don't know if I have double his healing. I don't know if I have double the healing of the other healer. I don't know if I have 100 healing over him and I'm barely doing better than him and he's actually being more used because he's getting a lot of good discords. I don't know because there's no scoreboard. So I don't know whether I should feel bad or, whether I need to step my game up or maybe switch to Lucio or do a different pick, because I've been intentionally stripped of all of the useful information to appeal to the lowest common denominator of player, which is the shitter who would be absolutely horrible and then sit there and say, oh, well, I get flamed by my team when I pick Hanzo and go 0-6. So Blizzard really has to take a step back and realize that if you take away the scoreboard, you're not only prohibiting, or excuse me, if you take away the scoreboard, it makes it where the people who carry the games and play exceptionally well aren't going to get that great feeling of, look at that, I got double the next highest frag guy on our team, or look at that, I got 50 kills this match, the highest on their team was 20. Seeing that information and seeing where you stack up is crucial, because let me tell you, nothing is more miserable than having every single match you play boil down to ladder points, because your ladder point system doesn't make any sense at all. Essentially, you have this awful system that you claim is based on medals, but as we well know, if you're playing a character like Mercy, essentially you're voided out of half the medals right out the gate. So what are you going to discourage people to play the least desired role? So that's, and here's let me bring up another good point about healers. Good play by McCree there. See right there, I saved McCree. That's not going to show up in the stat sheet, but what would show up in the stat sheet is bonus damage given through damage buff and healing. If healers could see how much they're healing compared to their adversaries, it would give them a huge incentive to heal. As it stands right now, the only person who knows how much I'm healing is me. And maybe if it gets all the way to the very end, we'll see that stupid player card at the end. But that doesn't really have any bearing on how the match is going and how people perceive the match at the current moment or reading the game, because let's remember that most people are completely bail out of the match by that stupid end of game screen. So the healers would be able to see, wow, I'm really out healing the other player, and that would give them an incentive to keep healing and continue to do a good job on healer. Alternatively, the DPS on the team, who are really usually the people who need to be made aware of how useful the healers are being, would see how useful... I might actually fucking die to this bullshit. Wow. That's really disappointing. The DPS would actually get to see how good that their healers are. My shift was on cooldown. But the DPS would actually get to see how good the healers are doing and like, wow, my Mercy has 15k healing given. But as it stands, I hit tab, I see I have gold. Ooh boy, the last person in the game that needs to be made aware of like, okay, you're doing the most healing on the team. Like, I know I'm doing the most healing on the team. I'm one of the only 2 healers, but I don't know how the other guy is doing, and I don't know how the enemy healers are doing. So in reality, playing healer is made even less fun by the fact that you suppose if the algorithm is based off of medals, like, oh, it's how many gold medals you get, is how many ladder points you get, which I'm pretty sure is total nonsense, because I was at and like stories like this are a dime a dozen. I was at 1996 and won a game, got +3. So I went up to 99, didn't get promoted. Next game is a 5v6 loss where we have a man down and I lose 25. So I'm not here to complain about the ladder system and, ooh, the ladder system's unfair, I get like a weird amount of ladder points, wins and losses. No, the point is that because there is no scoreboard and I can't actually see how I'm doing compared to the other players in the game, then since the ladder points really don't mean that much, it makes the game not fun to play. Because if the ladder points are kind of based off of nothing, fine, like I get that the ladder isn't perfect, but I need to at least be able to see basic kills and deaths. Like, you shouldn't be withholding that information from the players just because you don't want the absolute shittiest of players to like feel bad because they do absolutely horribly. Like this game. What if my allies hit tab and saw, wow, you died like 3 times in the last minute. Get your shit together. What? Oh, I'm scared. Now, so now I'm going to talk about esports, because I think I've pretty much shown how being able to see your own score in a shooting game is important to being able to derive fun from the game. I don't really see any point in playing a game where I'm never really aware of my own performance within the context of my team. Like, and I know people are going to idiotically say, like, oh, the medals, look at the medals. If every other person's score is a mystery, then the medals don't mean shit. What if I'm getting absolutely obliterated and I'm 2 and 2 and I have gold damage, gold objective kills, and gold limbs? Well, guess what? That doesn't mean shit because I don't really know what the hell my team is doing. I need to have a full scoreboard to see, okay, the healer has died 3 times, and oh, okay, yeah, our DPS hasn't even gotten a shot off. He must have like gotten sniped once or something. And having a scoreboard also allows you to make decisions about switching team comps. If someone's really bad at a certain role, like healer, maybe they don't play a lot of healer and they are more comfortable with tank. That way you can switch them off to tank maybe. But without a scoreboard, what are you going to do? Look at the kill feed? Just like intently look at it and somehow memorize who's doing well? That doesn't make any sense at all. And let's not forget to mention the fact that this game's kill feed is off by default, or at least was on PC when they released. It's almost as if this game doesn't want people to be held accountable at all. They think the less information we give people, the more they'll play, because if they lose, they won't look at their own score and say, "Wow, I picked McCree and went 1 and 12. I'm the reason my team lost." Since there's no scoreboard, if people are like, "Hey, dude, you need to switch to McCree," there's no continuity there in being able to say, no, look, you're 1 and 12, you definitely need to switch. It's just left ambiguous, and that absolute shitter player who destroys games by picking the wrong thing and being stubborn is vindicated by Blizzard withholding this information. Now, how does this apply to esports? Now, imagine you turn a baseball game on and there's no fucking score. You don't see the players' stats, their batting average, none of that, kills and deaths certainly aren't tracked in a professional game. That would just be ludicrous to know how the players are doing, wouldn't it? It's almost crazy to me that Blizzard took this like appeal to the lowest common denominator system of not showing anyone's score and then somehow thought it could apply to the highest level of esports. Like imagine having one of your normie friends over. Maybe he's really into traditional sports, doesn't really watch esports, but he's played a lot of Call of Duty, so he's willing to watch shooters. Okay. You sit him down, you're halfway through a match, even though Monte Cristo and Doa are incredibly talented and they're casting a great game, it's kind of hard to figure out who's winning right out the gate because there's really no scoreboard. All you can see is the round score. Like imagine if you turned on a baseball best of 3 and it was like, yeah, the Orioles won the last 2 games, but we're not going to show you the score of this one. Laughable. Would never happen. So you sit down with your buddy, and he's like, well, who's doing good? And you just have to say, well, I don't know. And then what if he was like, oh, well, who's the prolific player? You're like, I don't watch a ton of the game, I'm not sure, but if only there was some sort of statistical rankings here, even within the very current game, like the match that they're playing right at this moment, to at least show me who's carrying this game. Maybe not who's the best player overall, but holy crap, how am I supposed to know who's excelling for this one specific game? Oh, you can't. Like, how are you going to convince someone that's an interesting esport or that's compelling to watch? How are you going to keep track of storylines? Already, a new player watching an esport is going to have a hard time keeping track of all of these internet players' pseudonyms and even past keeping track of like, oh yeah, like Fallen uses this gun or Idra plays in this certain way. Even past any of that, just keeping the players straight with the team that they're on is going to be difficult at first. The fact that you don't even show how they're doing in-game throughout the game is a complete farce. And I think if you look at competitive in its current state right now in Overwatch, I'm just going to one-man res that guy. I think that you could definitely say this game would benefit from a scoreboard. People need to know how they're doing, whether it be the good player knowing that he is in fact doing well, or the bad player knowing that maybe it's time for a role switch. If you enjoyed this honest commentary, make sure you like and subscribe to the video. If you're really, really mad and think that the medal system is enough, I don't know, man, you might be the problem.